If Aston Martin pulls into the pit lane before the Australian Grand Prix even starts, the entire Formula One season changes in less than 1 minute. Because this is not a rumor. It is not paddock gossip. Italian reports confirm Honda considered not even going to Australia after Bahrain. They are arriving with limited spare parts, a structural vibration issue, and a power unit running in survival mode. We are days away from the first race of the year. Millions watching. Global sponsors activated. A brand new era beginning. And there is a real scenario where Fernando Alonso completes the formation lap and retires the car before the lights go out. Not because of a crash. Because of risk. Battery damage. Engine resonance. A project worth hundreds of millions on the line. And if telemetry crosses a red threshold during that single lap, Adrian, Newey and Alonso may have to make a decision that shocks the entire grid. Start the race and gamble the season. Or stop the car and protect the future. Stay with me until the end, because what is happening inside Aston Martin right now is far more serious than anyone expected, and one detail about the Honda power unit changes everything. Now let's move inside the garage. Because what's happening behind closed doors at Aston Martin right now is not normal preseason stress. It is controlled alarm. After Bahrain testing, engineers did not celebrate mileage. They did not analyze long-run pace. They were studying vibration graphs. And those graphs were not subtle. The RA626H was producing oscillations that matched destructive resonance points inside the chassis. Not a minor imbalance. Not a calibration error. A structural interaction between the V6 engine and the monocoque itself. And here's why that matters. The battery for this new generation is fully integrated inside the survival cell. It is not just bolted on. It is part of the structure. So when vibrations hit a critical frequency, the battery is not isolated. It absorbs it. In Bahrain, that absorption turned into internal damage. Enough damage that Alonso's car had to be stopped for safety. Not performance. Safety. And that single word changes the tone completely. Because performance problems can be managed. Safety concerns force decisions. But here's where things become even more delicate. Testing mileage was dramatically lower than rivals. While others completed long race simulations, Aston Martin was limiting runs. On the final day, they completed fewer than 10 laps. Not because they wanted secrecy. Because they could not risk breaking another power unit component. Spare parts are already stretched. And we have not even started the season. Think about that for a moment. We are days away from Australia. Freight has been shipped. Cars are assembled. And the internal priority is not maximizing lap time. It is preventing structural failure. Now add one more layer. Honda does not yet have a full permanent fix. What they have is a temporary survival package. Reinforced mounting points. Adjusted engine maps, revised vibration pathways, and reduced electrical deployment. In simple terms, they are trying to change how energy moves through the car. Not to make it faster, to make it stable. But stability at reduced power comes at a cost. Lower peak performance, less aggressive energy recovery, restricted deployment on acceleration zones. And Australia is no longer a low-stress circuit. Albert Park now has multiple high acceleration sections, longer flat-out moments. Heavy braking zones that demand strong energy harvesting. If the ERS cannot fully deploy, if the engine cannot safely reach optimal rotational ranges, the deficit will not be small. It will be visible. But here is the deeper question. What happens if the data during installation laps in Melbourne still shows vibration spikes? Because practice sessions can be managed. You can run fewer laps. You can back off. But on race day, once the formation lap begins, there is no hiding. And that formation lap becomes the ultimate diagnostic test. Cold systems. Real track conditions. Full electrical cycles. If something is going to expose weakness, it is that lap. And this is where the tension builds. Because if the vibration countermeasures fail under real load, Alonso and Newey will not be thinking about points. They will be thinking about the entire development timeline. Blowing a power unit in race 1 could compromise allocation for the season. Destroying a battery could delay the B specification upgrade. And damaging confidence internally could destabilize the project before it properly begins. So the first race is no longer just a sporting event. It is a strategic checkpoint. Survive or reset. And what most people still have not realized is that this is not only about Australia. This is about whether the foundation of the new Honda partnership is solid enough to carry the ambition they promised. Because if you need to consider retiring on the formation lap in race 1, the issue runs deeper than lap time. And in the next part, we need to talk about Adrian Newey's position inside all of this. Because his arrival changes how these decisions are made. And that may be the most important factor of all. Now let's talk about Adrian Newey. Because this is not just another technical issue inside another midfield team. This is the most respected designer in modern Formula One attaching his name to a project that is already under structural stress. And that changes the stakes completely. Newey did not join Aston Martin for gradual progress. He joined for a revolution. New regulations. New power unit partner. New era. The entire narrative around Aston Martin was built around one word: future. But here is the uncomfortable truth. When your first race of the season is approached in survival mode, the future feels very far away. And inside the paddock, perception matters. Engineers talk. Rival teams analyze. Sponsors listen carefully. If Aston Martin struggles visibly in Melbourne, especially with limited power and conservative maps, the narrative shifts instantly. From ambitious contender to unstable project. And perception, in Formula One, can be as damaging as performance deficit. But here's where it becomes even more delicate. Newey understands vibration better than almost anyone. He knows that when an engine and chassis share a destructive frequency, it is never a simple fix. You are not replacing a broken part. You are altering the dynamic behavior of the entire car. Engine mounts, structural stiffness, energy pathways. Everything is connected. And if you adjust one element too aggressively, you risk creating a new weakness somewhere else. That is why the so-called vibration killer is not a magic bullet. It is a compromise. A careful attempt to shift resonance zones just enough to survive. But survival is not domination. And this is where Alonso enters the equation. Fernando Alonso is not a driver who accepts symbolic participation. He races to compete. He races to attack. He races to win positions. Now imagine telling him before the first Grand Prix of the year, "We may need you to manage vibrations. Short shift in certain corners. Avoid aggressive throttle application. Do not fully deploy electrical power on exit." That is not racing at the limit. That is mechanical preservation. And here is the psychological layer nobody talks about. Drivers feel vibration. They feel instability before sensors do. If Alonso senses something abnormal during the formation lap, he will report it immediately. And that radio message could trigger the most controversial decision of the weekend. Because at that exact moment, Newey and the engineering group will face a brutal calculation. Do we risk a catastrophic failure live on global broadcast? Or do we protect the development program and accept short-term embarrassment? This is not fear. This is strategic restraint. But restraint at race 1 sends a message. And the message would be clear. The car is not ready. Now let's go even deeper. Honda is already working on a plan B. A potential revised specification power unit. But development windows are regulated. Changes require validation. Performance deficit must be measurable. Which means early races are not just competitions. They are data collection missions. If Australia ends in retirement before lap 1, it accelerates internal pressure. If Australia ends in a slow but safe finish, it buys time. And time is everything right now. Because Suzuka is quietly viewed as a symbolic checkpoint. Home race for Honda. Technical validation circuit. High load. High stress. If the foundation is not stable by then, the entire narrative around the partnership shifts. And this is why Melbourne matters far more than people realize. Not for points. Not for podiums. For credibility. Because a project that promises championship ambition cannot look fragile on day 1. And yet, fragility is exactly what the current reports suggest. Low spare parts. Limited mileage. Conservative engine mapping. Structural vibration countermeasures still under validation. All of that adds up to one reality. Australia is not about performance. It is about proof. Proof that the car can run safely. Proof that the integration works. Proof that Newey's long-term vision is not built on unstable foundations. And here is the most important question of all. If the car completes the formation lap without incident, does that truly mean the problem is solved? Or does it simply mean the team is choosing to operate below its potential? Because sometimes in Formula One, finishing the race is not victory. It is delay. And the difference between delay and collapse may become clear before the first lap even officially begins. Now let's push this one level deeper. Because there is something even more strategic happening beneath the vibration issue. Allocation. Component allocation. In modern Formula One, you do not have unlimited engines. You do not have endless battery packs. You are restricted. Every failure early in the season is not just a retirement. It is a future grid penalty waiting to happen. And this is where the formation lap scenario becomes far more logical than emotional. If telemetry shows dangerous resonance during that single lap, continuing is not bravery. It is gambling with the entire allocation pool. Destroy one battery pack now, and suddenly your development schedule shifts. Destroy a full power unit, and you compress your margin for the rest of the year. And remember something critical. This is the first race of a regulation cycle. The first impression of a brand new partnership. If the hardware is fragile under conservative mapping, what happens when they eventually unlock performance? Because right now, Honda is not running the engine at its theoretical maximum. They are deliberately avoiding certain rotational ranges. They are smoothing torque delivery. They are reducing peak electrical deployment. In other words, Australia will not show the real car. It will show a restricted version of it. And here is the tension. If even the restricted version struggles with stability, that signals a deeper architectural issue. Not a tuning problem. An integration problem. And integration problems take time. Wind tunnel hours will not fix it. Simulation alone will not fix it. You need track validation. But track validation requires reliability. And reliability requires stability under race load. Now imagine the pressure inside that Aston Martin pit wall on Sunday. Formation lap begins. Alonso cycles through braking zones. Energy harvest spikes. Deployment tests the rear stability. Engine revs climb briefly on acceleration. Engineers are staring at live vibration channels. Battery casing load sensors. Thermal graphs. If one of those traces crosses a predefined safety threshold, the call could be immediate. Box this lap. Retire the car. And that decision would be made in seconds. Seconds that define months of work. But here is something even more revealing. The team has already prepared language for this scenario. Not publicly. Internally. You do not discuss skipping Australia without also discussing controlled withdrawal scenarios. You do not build a survival package without defining safe operating limits. Which means this possibility has been modeled, simulated, discussed. And when something is discussed at that level, it is not fantasy. It is contingency planning. Now let's connect this to Fernando Alonso's mindset. He understands long games. He has seen projects collapse because of rushed decisions. He has also seen projects succeed because someone chose patience. If he feels instability, he will not ignore it for pride. But he will also demand clarity. Because drivers know the difference between caution and fear. And this project cannot afford to look afraid. So the balance is delicate. Too conservative, and the car looks uncompetitive. Too aggressive, and you risk public mechanical failure. And in modern Formula One, failure spreads fast. Headlines. Social media. Sponsor reactions. Investor questions. All triggered by one moment on the formation lap. But here is the branch nobody is exploring yet. What if the car runs cleanly? What if vibrations remain within acceptable limits? What if the vibration killer does just enough? That creates a different tension. Because then the question becomes performance deficit. If the car finishes safely but far outside the top positions, the narrative shifts again. From reliability crisis to performance gap. And that gap matters. Because there are regulatory mechanisms allowing additional development if performance deficit exceeds a certain percentage. Which means paradoxically, being visibly slow early could unlock opportunity. But only if the car survives. That is the razor's edge. Survive to justify development. Or fail and risk destabilizing the entire timeline. And that is why Australia is not just race one. It is an audit. An audit of Honda's engineering. An audit of Aston Martin's integration. An audit of Newey's foundation. And audits do not care about emotion. They care about numbers. So when the cars roll out in Melbourne, do not just watch lap times. Watch body language. Watch radio tone. Watch how aggressively Alonso uses throttle on corner exit. Because if he is feathering the pedal, if he is short shifting subtly, if he sounds unusually restrained,